exercise, then how you do yoga will be imbued with the perspective of I'm exercising. And if you view yoga as like spiritual practice, then the whole doing of it will be just, it will be colored. It will be, influenced by this is spirituality that I'm doing, etc. Right? So what I'm trying to do in this course over the, taking a year to do it, which is wonderful, but next time we run the course, we're going to run it longer because it just takes time for these things to happen, right? So what is yoga? So yoga is primarily a state of being, right? And that state of being means that our mind and our body and our breath, our behavior, emotions will be operating in a certain way. And when they're operating in that way, there will be a shift in our experience, our experience of the world, of our relationships, of our work, of politics, of society, etc. It will shift. Fundamental to this state is the opportunity to shift where perception and where action arises from. So, in order for that shift to happen, the state is essential. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're not in that state that you can never have that shift. It's just that the more you're in that state of yoga, the more opportunity there is to shift the location from which perception and response is arising from. So, what are the two possibilities about where perception and action arise from? It's quite simple, actually. They arise either from our previous experiences, in other words, from the patterns that we have developed over the course of our lifetime, which are so integral to who we are that we will not even actually recognize that they're operating in our experience of the world. Or they can arise out of I don't know what word is best to use. There's many different words. The word that's there for me is spirit. But we can also say authenticity or clarity or a non-patterned place. So what's this month in the Wednesday morning meditations, the meditations have been showing us the well-developed set of perspectives that we have acquired over a lifetime, or perhaps many, if that's your belief system. But at least over the course of this lifetime. And for many of us, operating in that way involves a lot of energy, enormous amounts of energy. I myself am trying so hard to be liked. And every time I have an experience where I don't have to do anything and actually I feel loved, I just weep because there's so much effort that goes into just like me. And when I have the experience of it without all of that effort, it's like, and then all these tears come because it's just unnecessary. And I can just relax for a second and put it all down and be like, right? So, and then I go back to trying real fucking hard. Excuse my language. But for a moment. Right? So that is the purpose, goal of practice, to allow us to be authentic and to not have all of those acquired habits drive. Okay? So the practice of yoga is designed primarily for two goals. The one goal is to bring us into that state of yoga whereby the possibility of differentiating between patterning and authenticity, between effort and allowing, or as Melissa was saying, receiving, is more possible, right? So first goal is this: as you come towards balance, attention stabilizes, we have greater space in our actions and our perception. We can start to see how the patterns are operating. Right? So that's goal one, is to come into that state. This is practice. Goal two is to experience what it's like to operate from out of authenticity. So when we're authentic, we're simply present. Pretty damn simple. When you're truly present, that's where spirit is. But actually coming into present is somewhat of an accomplishment. So, how does that happen? How do you come into presence? Wherever you put your attention, that will grow. This is a fundamental principle in yoga. Whatever you pay attention to, that is what will grow and develop. If you are paying attention to the stretch in the asana or the burn in your muscles or the effort in getting into and out of something, that is what will grow. That will be the continuation of whatever pattern you have accumulated over the course of your life. So, what we're trying to do with yoga is to put our attention places that will allow us to be present. The experience is where presence is. Trying to have some curiosity around what is my experience can be a helpful doorway into the experience. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do is simply have the experience. That is what all of these techniques are set up to create. And in terms of our goal as a teacher or as a guide for somebody else's experiences, what we're trying to use the techniques for, just they have an experience. All right, we'll come back in a second. Valerie, what is yoga? So yoga is primarily a state of being, right? And that state of being means that our mind and our body and our breath, our behavior, emotions will be operating in a certain way. And when they're operating in that way, there will be a shift in our experience, our experience of the world, of our relationships, of our work, of politics, of society, etc. It will shift. Fundamental to this state is the opportunity to shift where perception and where action arises from. So, in order for that shift to happen, the state is essential. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're not in that state that you can never have that shift. It's just that the more you're in that state of yoga, the more opportunity there is to shift the location from which perception and response is arising from. So, what are the two possibilities about where perception and action arise from? It's quite simple, actually. They arise either from our previous experiences, in other words, from the patterns that we have developed over the course of our lifetime, which are so integral to who we are that we will not even actually recognize that they're operating in our experience of the world. Or they can operate, arise out of, I don't know what word is best to use. There's many different words. The word that's there for me is spirit. But we can also say authenticity or clarity or a non-patterned place. So what's this month in the Wednesday morning meditations, the meditations have been showing us the well-developed set of perspectives that we have acquired over a lifetime, or perhaps many, if that's your belief system. But at least over the course of this lifetime. And for many of us, operating in that way involves a lot of energy, enormous amounts of energy. I myself am trying so hard to be liked. And every time I have an experience where I don't have to do anything and actually I feel loved, I just weep, because there's so much effort that goes into just like me. And when I had the experience of it without all of that effort, it's like, and then all these tears come because it's just unnecessary. And I can just relax for a second and put it all down and be like, right? So, and then I go back to trying real fucking hard. Excuse my language. But for a moment. Right? So that is the purpose, goal of practice, to allow us to be authentic and to not have all of those acquired habits drive. Okay? So the practice of yoga is designed primarily for two goals. The one goal is to bring us into that state of yoga whereby the possibility of differentiating between patterning and authenticity, between effort and allowing, or as Melissa was saying, receiving, is more possible, right? So first goal is this: as you come towards balance, attention stabilizes, we have greater space in our actions and our perception. We can start to see how the patterns are operating. Right? So that's goal one, is to come into that state. This is practice. Goal two is to experience what it's like to operate from, out of authenticity. So when we're authentic, we're simply present. Pretty damn simple. When you're truly present, that's where spirit is. But actually coming into present is somewhat of an accomplishment. So, how does that happen? How do you come into presence? Wherever you put your attention, that will grow. This is a fundamental principle in yoga. Whatever you pay attention to, that is what will grow and develop. If you are paying attention to the stretch in the asana, or the burn in your muscles, or the effort in getting into and out of something, that is what will grow. That will be the continuation of whatever pattern you have accumulated over the course of your life. So, what we're trying to do with yoga is to put our attention places that will allow us to be present. The experience is where presence is. Trying to have some curiosity around what is my experience can be a helpful doorway into the experience. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do is simply have the experience. That is what all of these techniques are set up to create. And in terms of our goal as a teacher or as a guide for somebody else's experiences, what we're trying to use the techniques for, just they have an experience. All right, we'll come back in a second. Valerie?
Chase, so the first part of figuring out that you're coming from pattern, right? So you figured that out. So, oh yes, this is a pattern, it's uncomfortable, but I identify it, da da da. Then what, trust? You stopped driving? What's the story?
This is a great question. $64,000. Anybody have an answer? So authenticity is arising out of a completely unbounded, completely open location. It is by characteristicless class is the image of the water, in a stream with pools. So the water being in a pool and then running down into the next pool and then running down into the next pool, etc. This is, I think, really how to think about yoga. And it's not that what's in the pool is being transferred down. What's each one of these pools has its own essence and has its own identity, etc. But what's being passed down is how to get there, how to find it. I think I've said this before, but in these programs that we lead, half the people come in saying, I'm going to be a yoga teacher, and that's my life's purpose, and I know, and the other half come in saying, hey, look, no expectation that I'm going to be a teacher. I'm just here because I want to go a little deeper. All right. So, just so you know, and I know I've been communicating clearly. And we say, yeah, sure, fine, good, come. And then at least half the group switches, whatever group they're in. And part of what may happen is somebody, I'm really going to be into yoga, etc. But then as they're doing the yoga, what they realize is that the yoga is just helping them be free. And in that freedom, gardening is their thing, or piano, or starting a business, or I've always wanted to share my grandmother's embroidery it. So what should happen is that each of us has a purpose for being on the planet. Actually, purpose is each of us have things to do here. That's why we came. And what yoga is like a guide to a way of tapping into and letting that full expression happen. So, what the structure of the Yoga Well Institute is explicitly about people coming in. Our vision is that the Yoga Well Institute envisions a safe, supportive, and caring community in yoga, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create this community that's safe, supportive, caring, where people experience, where people come out of physical and emotional suffering, right? So this is a healing process. And then experience sustainable transformation, right? So you come in, you start studying yoga, you start to identify, how am I causing myself to suffer? Start to heal, change. That only works if it's sustainable. This is why location moves don't work. Yeah, because wherever you go, there you are. You're still the same person that can't break up with their friend, or that wants to be liked, or whatever the thing is, etc. And so we experience sustainable transformation. That means we become who we're here to become, and that's an ongoing process. It doesn't happen just in 1 year or 2, etc. And the final part is, and learn how to help others do the same thing. So some portion of what we're trying to do at the Yoga Well Institute is to have people come in, heal, become really authentic, and then go off and do what they are really fired up about doing. And some portion of those people leading others in doing this work is what they'll be fired up and want to do. So then, how do you train people to do that, etc.? So that's really the vision of the Yoga Well Institute community. I should say Vini Yoga as a whole, because we're the way and the truth and the only way and the only truth. And we're accepting donations. And you don't burn in hell later in life, okay? Just don't do that. Okay, anyway, point is that this is what, this idea of the stream coming down is really, and this has really been in my consciousness a lot in the last month plus, etc., because of the really excessive suffering that India is sustaining right now with the COVID. And, so many people there live literally day to day, hand to mouth. They don't have really stable place to live. They don't have stable food, etc. They buy their food, they eat it, they get up the next day, they go earn it. And so like when this has shut down society, that's like, how those people eat, how do they get enough to eat? It is really an awful, awful, awful situation. Not to mention that, hundreds of thousands of people are getting sick and dying, etc. The KYM community yesterday lost one of their sort of prominent chanting teachers. Her name was Radha Sundarajan, and she was the director of Vedavani, which was KYM's Vedic Chant Center, and she was, a longtime student of Mr. Deshikachar's, etc., decades long, and she has still been a prominent teacher of chanting. In fact, I had sent lots of people to her for chanting lessons and whatnot. And anyway, she passed away yesterday morning from COVID. And so all of this has really been my consciousness, and there's this so that's where this is coming from. One last thing to say is that I am going to be holding a chanting class today at 2:00. We'll just be leading. I'll just be leading some chants, and it'll be call and response and this kind of thing over the internet for an hour, as a means of trying to raise some funds for that. So if you don't know about that, please email me and I'll send you the information. And everybody is welcome. You're encouraged to give a donation, but it's not required. And the donations are direct to the organization. They're not to Yoga Well. Okay, so the physical movements here in 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 are the physical preparation. And what we did in 3 and 4 is really sort of bowing, right? So this image is about recognizing our the debt that we owe, that so many people have put in so much care and so much work and so much effort in order to pass down this methodology that's like so healing and empowering for each of us. So there's like a recognition of that. And then the physical movements here are bowing, right? So there's like a kind of honoring here. And then the main thing we are doing is pranayama with meditation. So the preparation is all about being seated. This is a back bend, obviously, so that when we're seated, that the spine we can be erect and long. Same thing, what we're doing is preparing the hips and the back to sit. there's no twist here, and there's no so we haven't really worked on the opening of the hips, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to teach pranayama and breathing today, and how to think about it and what to do with it. So I wanted to give an example. So we started off with inhale is 4, exhale is 4. We lengthen the exhale first to 8. Then we lengthened the inhale to 8. Then we stayed at 8080 for some time. Then we came back to the image and did some breathing with the visualization. So what was happening here in 3 and 4, and what was happening in 6 and 7 is that we're preparing the breath. So we're using a pause after the exhale and lengthening that as a way of strengthening and lengthening the exhale. And we're doing that in really exhale focused places. So like in the Vajrasana forward bend and in Uttanasana, etc. And then we dropped that and we started in on some inhale focused postures. And so we started the pause after inhale, 2, and then the pause after inhale 3. And what that did is it works on strengthening and lengthening the inhale. And then when we got to our pranayama, then hopefully our 8080, if this was a challenging length for you, then that would have been supported by the strengthening and lengthening of the breath that we did in 3 and 4 and 6 and 7. So I'm going to explain more about that, but does anybody have a question or a comment before we do that? Melissa, Melissa, please.
I think I actually think you answered it. Just to double check, you had pause after exhale 3, 4, 6, 7, and that was your way of extending the exhale. So even because you were extending it here, there was no need, you didn't have to use pausing in the pranayama.
Well,
I was just curious why you didn't. That's all.
There could have been in the pausing in the pranayama. That would have also been legitimate, but I'm going to present a bunch of things that, though they are not math, appear to be math. And oftentimes people have patterning acquired from their previous lives around math. And so I was wanting to keep it simple and just have a really straightforward example of like, okay, this is how to do this. And then, once everybody learns the fundamentals and everybody gets like, this is how you do it, then we can add some of the other things. So, this is just, pause will strengthen, or pause continues the work of the act of whatever active thing it follows. Mm-hmm. So if the pause after exhale is continuing the work of exhale, but in a slightly different manner. And so it can really support, strengthen, lengthen, make more subtle, etc. Exhale. Same with the pause after inhale. But I was really wanting to do just a straight pranayama piece. So I did the preparation beforehand in the asana, and then we did the pranayama. Good. Anything else?
Mm-hmm. Other question is, would it also have been appropriate for you to introduce the pause after exhale, say somewhere 1 or 2, when there's like less going on in the body? I'm thinking like for a beginner, or
I think 2,
even for
definitely.
a beginner. Okay. All right. Thank you.
2, definitely. 1, if you introduce the pause there, then it's going to take their attention away from the actually trying to remember what does it look like, and
Yeah, it definitely felt like an either or. Either you were introducing the breath and working on that, or you were introducing the object.
right. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
good, super. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the structure of today's practice?
Chase, not the structure, but when you're going from child pose, backing up into the knees again, not going forward into Chakravakasana.
Yeah.
Would you bring, is it the same movement as a forward fold coming back
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, but it can be more difficult
Yeah.
because of the position of the hips, etc. Many people find that they don't have the strength to actually come off the floor here in a way. Yeah.
So what do you say to those people?
Sucks to be you. No. Get with the program. Shame, shame, shame. No. Uh, you know, they'll have to find a workaround. What I would say is that this is not a great place to work on the back strength. I would say that I would come back to Uttanasana and I would have them do Ardha Uttanasana for some weeks. And then this will get easier. Or we can do Bhujangasana. I wouldn't work on it in this place. They'll just have to find a workaround and come on. That's okay.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah, but they can develop strength in these Bhujangasana or here, etc. Yeah. Good. Whitney.
I was just going to share that I have put a chair in front of people that have a hard time coming up and down in that, and they really like, I mean, it really allows them to access some of it without the issue of coming back up and down, like to have their hands just come onto the chair instead of the floor. Does that make sense?
It's fabulous idea.
Absolutely.
What a great idea. Super. Yeah. Mary?
And then one of the things that I've done, Valerie, that's been helpful is allow them the opportunity to kind of push themselves back to seated on their heels and then stand up, like kind of a two-parter almost, like
Yeah,
anyway.
that's another workaround too. Yeah. Yep. Good. Super. Okay. So I'm going to stop that. And then okay, so I just want to I want to review some of the course planning stuff that we've done so far. So, this morning's discussion was so spot on because yoga is experiential. It's not something that you can intellectually understand. It has to be something that is experiential. And it's in the doing of it, etc., that it makes sense. So our tools are experiences. Our tools are experiences. So when we're guiding a practice or when we're giving somebody a practice, it's important that we're able to give them something to do which will give them the experience that we want them to have. Thus, the importance of course planning. right? You know, this is what's missing in Western yoga, is that people do sequencing based on like dance moves. It's sort of based on creativity. It's not based on any sort of principles about what kind of experience will be useful for that person. And let me organize things into some sort of flow that will help that person to have that experience. So thus the importance of course planning, right? We alternately call this experience design. What is course planning? It's experience design. Why is it important? Well, because every experience starts somewhere. Then you have the experience, then it ends. It's no different than this class. This class is an experience. Yeah. So, right? So before this class, you were doing something. Maybe you were sleeping. Maybe you were, you went for a hike. Maybe you were having breakfast. Maybe, so you were doing something. Then you came to the class. Then when you're here in the class, you're doing something other, something different than what you were doing a few moments ago. So ideally, there's some kind of transition. One of the biggest things that I've had to work with in my marriage is my transitions. Because I'm very Vata. I'm sitting there talking to her 1 minute, and then abruptly I get up and I go off and I do something that we've just been talking about and bring it back to show her and make it happen and etc. But that doesn't work for her. She wants me to say, would you mind if I will go now over to it and get that and come back and show you how it works, and then we can just or because sometimes she doesn't want to do that. And if I abruptly just make the decision and run over there and come back, etc., it feels very disruptive, right? So the same sort of idea is here in the experience that you're having in yoga. You want to gradually move into an experience that you feel well prepared for. And then come back out of it. So every experience should have this preparatory part called the Purvanga, right? Where you de-link from what you were doing before, where you find out what is the status of my system now. How is the body working? How is the breath? How is my mind? Then you do the things that will help you in the experience that you want to have, and you move in that direction. Then, then you have the experience. And this is what is important about all the little techniques and whatnot, is that those little techniques, etc., are designed to help you be in the experience and have what's happening there really happen. Then you come back out. Anything that you do which is unusual will have some impact on your system. So you want to recover from that. You want to recover from that. Then you want to prepare for what you're going to do next. Right? So this is the structure of every course, and that's why we have all of these different things. So one of the things that we have is the strength and flexibility chart. This is a way, bless you, this is a way to have the physical demands of the asanas fit together into Bless you. Now it's going around. I see. Who is next? My wife always says vata, because sneezing is vata. That's exactly right. People will say dust and that. No, vata. Okay, so point here is that the different kinds of impact on the different parts of the body can be put together so that you can start to work on a particular part of the body and by the time you get to the experience that you want to have, it is been well prepared and it's ready to have that. We're going to do the same thing with the breath today. We're going to explain what are the steps that you can prepare the individual parts of the breath so that by the time you get to the goal of your ratio, or the time that you get to the length of the breath that you think will be useful, it is prepared and ready to do that. This is also, it's not only about this anatomy. It is also about the energy. It is also about the feel of something. Melissa went over this briefly in the beginning of the course. We are going to come back and talk about this a lot more now. Different practices have different energetic effects. There is a difference between what happens in a vinyasa power flow class and how you feel at the end, and how you feel in a yin yoga or a restorative yoga class. At the end, you feel very different because those experiences have really different energetic outcomes. So when we are talking about what kind of practice will be useful for someone, we are also thinking about what is the energetic effect of that practice for the person. And this basically comes down to three, I would say 2+. The main ones are Langana and Brahmana. Langana is a kind of, it's often referred to as calming or relaxing because this is what initially happens. But for me, rather than saying rather than say relaxing, Langana lightens. When you relax somebody, they put down their load. They stop spending so much energy holding on, trying to make something happen, etc. Right? So actually, Langana and Brahmana can both be broken down into 2 sections. One is pacification and the other is cure. This is a concept we work with later, but point is that a pacification of Langana that is Langana in nature tends to be very relaxing, very calming. Langana also is the energy, the fire moves from the periphery to the center. There is an intensification of the Agni, whereas in Brahmana, there is a dispersing of the Agni. You see people come out of vinyasa flow, or you see them come out of hot yoga, their faces are flush. They're moving fast. They have a lot of energy. They're ready to charge off into their day because there has been the movement, the dispersal of energy of Agni from the core to the periphery. Off they go. Langana and Brahmana have impacts on the they're associated with different areas of the body. So Langana tends to be involved with exhale, and it is the Apana region, right? So to lighten or to reduce means to eliminate, to get rid of. Apana function, right? Apana is about eliminating and reducing. Follow? So Langana, Langana is about the Apana region. Apana region is how we activate or strengthen or encourage the Apana region is by exhale. Exhale is supported through forward bends. Exhale is supported through Paschimottanha postures. Remember this that Jenny taught. So now you have enough pieces that you can start to appreciate that this is quite a sophisticated system, but it's actually at its core very simple. Inhale is in the chest and opens the chest. Inhale is supported through back arches, Purvatana kinds of postures. Therefore, when we're looking for a Brahmana kind of expansive, energizing, activating sort of result from practice, then we'll work with the prana region. How do you work with the prana region? Through inhale and Purvatana postures. Okay. Questions or comments on where we are so far? What I'm trying to do in this is just to show you what all the pieces of the course of the experience design, of course, planning that we've already gone over. First one is experience is our currency. Second one is so being able to design reliably an experience is a value. Third one is all experiences are a journey. They start from somewhere, they go to somewhere, they end somewhere. So what happens in every section of the journey is course planning, is experience design. You prepare, you consolidate, or you smooth over and go into your next thing. On a physical level, that's the strength and flexibility chart, because it's the joints and the areas of the body that we're going to be working on, etc. It's also on an energetic level about what is the overall effect you want out of the course. Is it Langana? Is it Brahmana? Is it Samana? Samana is not the same weight as Langana and Brahmana, but still important. If what you want is Langana, Then what are we using? We're using Paschimottanha postures because Paschimottanha postures work with exhale, and Paschimottanha postures and exhale are Apana focused. Apana is related to elimination. That was here. There's a lot of different pieces, but they all fit together. And this is why we say this is a spiral. You get the pieces, they come around, and then they come around again, and then they come around again, and then again, because each time they come around, you have more familiarity with some of another piece, and it's all interconnected, and slowly the whole structure builds in your understanding, and you can see it. Valerie?
So I guess a big piece I'm missing here is the observation of the person so that you can plan.
Yeah, that's true. We haven't really
Right.
even gone much there yet.
Okay, but we'll get there because it's a spiral.
Yeah, don't worry. It's
Right.
only a couple more decades. You'll be there. Yeah, Catherine.
So if we were to apply this to the practice that we just did, would you say that it was leaning towards the Langana and maybe even a little Samana?
I would
Or
say, yeah, this is a good question. Real good question. So, I just have to find it. Hold on. So, for me, this is a samana because it's equal. We worked on exhale first. We did 2 and 3 and in Paschimottanha postures.
Mhm.
Then we worked on inhale. We did pause after inhale, 2 and then 3 in Purvatana postures. Then we got to the pranayama. In many ways, pranayama here is the main experiential goal of this practice. 2, 3, 4 is really working on the exhale. 6, 7 is really working on the inhale. Then we put it all together and we made inhale and exhale equal in the goal ratio. So like energetically, I would say this is a samana practice. And that it's fairly equal and balanced, etc.
while I'm looking at this again, can I ask you a question about number 9?
Sure.
So when you gave the instruction to allow the water to come in from above and to go out from below, my initial experience was to engage Ujjayi again because I felt like I was trying to direct this water. And then it felt very forced. And I actually said to myself, you don't need to force the water through. Like, it's okay if it just gently flows in and out. And you never instructed us to use Ujjayi. I just wondered if there was any intent for us to re-engage the breath there, or
This is also a really good question. So the answer is always in our values, right? The answer is always in what is it that we want to have happen. And what we want to have happen is for the person to have an experience. In order for the person to have an experience, they have to be present. So what we want is whatever technique we're using to support their sustained attention. I mean, that's fundamentally what we always want in every practice. So if it was helpful to have Ujjayi, and then the feeling of the water coming in was more, and the bhavana was easier to be with and support, etc. then Ujjayi should have been there. But if Ujjayi was a little bit distracting, and then I start, instead of like feeling the water coming in and being present with the experience of something filling me and then going on to another person, etc. And Ujjayi was actually taking me into this competition where how long can I make my breath, or did, okay, so then there should be no Ujjayi. And this comes back to, this, I love to say, operate your vehicle responsibly. Because it's,
I think for me, what happened was I realized that I was not using my wise effort in the meditation. It was, I had gone to using too much effort again. And then it just occurred to me as we were looking at this, I'm like, I don't think you ever instructed Ujjayi, but maybe that was the intent. So I guess, yeah, there was a lot happening there for me, just trying to have enough direction with the breath to feel like I was able, because I did feel like I needed the breath to feel the water move through. Yeah.
I was just going to say that
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it is helpful. Not everybody will need the breath. In fact, some people will feel that having the breathing is distracting them from, their ability to be with the image or the feeling of water coming in and filling them and then going on to the next pool, etc. Some people will feel like actually inhaling and exhaling is an additional aspect, which is a distraction. So what would be better in that case then is not to just stay with the water coming in, etc. Typically, the more advanced someone is, the less support they need from doing other things.
Mhm.
So another way to have done this meditation is to say, as you exhale, reach, or, let's do it like this. Put the arms up, inhale, feel the water coming in. Exhale, feel the water coming out. Then put the arms up again. Inhale, exhale, right? So now that's helpful for somebody who's brand new to meditation, has never had to keep their attention anywhere for more than 2 seconds, because television is designed to change before there's something happens in the screen within 2 seconds, because that is what studies show keep your attention there. The constant movement makes it easy to be drawn in and stay and not let your attention wander. So that, that medium is intentionally set up that way. If you watch like commercials or something, there will always be like something walking in the background, or there will be some movement or something that keeps your attention. Like the person will start to tell you something, they don't stay where they are, they start to walk. And, it's like, this is a medium that is designed to draw the attention. So we don't, as a society, really have, a concerted program of helping people to develop sustained attention. Then we put them on Ritalin when it gets really, we give them a lot of sugar and caffeine, and train them in television, and then shoot them full of drugs. It's very good for business. Obviously that's a simplification and that doesn't apply to all, everything. But point is that when somebody does beginning meditation, to have some of these things like arm movements or breathing, etc., is a very helpful support for sustained attention. Good. Thank you. Okay. So just let's wrap this. Let's finish our this review, and then we'll come to, and then we'll go to we'll have a break. This target model is a way of organizing postures that work on a specific goal of having the spine be alive and have the breathing really bringing prana into the spine, into the sushumna. So this is it's a further development of the strength and flexibility chart, because in order to do the postures that are at the center of this goal, Mahamudra, Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, etc., there is some work that needs to happen, etc. And the effect of this energetically is, is going to be usually more Brahmana. When you do Mahamudra, when you do Tara Parvati, etc., the experience at the end is very awake. It should be a stable energy, calm, stable energy. And we also went over, okay, I'm going to leave that. We went over the definitions of asana, etc. The last piece, which is what we're going to develop further today, is the same kind of steps are there in breathing that are there with the strength and flexibility chart and with the categorization of asana in terms of Paschimotthana, Purvatthana, Parvati, etc. So when we come back from our break, what we're going to do is really look at what are the different parts of the breath, how does it work, and what are the ways that this translates into creating breathing practices. All right, questions, comments? Okay, so I have to say that was a really fun session. Thank you all. We are going to take 15 minutes and we'll come back at the top of the hour. See you then.